in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought?
And welcome to the show today, the Author Your Brand Show, where you're going to want to take notes. You're definitely going to want to subscribe and click below for some really great content and links and a quiz from our guest today, who is a business breakthrough specialist. I mean, this guy's an international speaker, best-selling author, guides business people worldwide to move from self-sabotage to self-made success by uncovering an inborn trait that stops their success. And I have a personal story about that one. Tragic events that affected his personal and professional life sparked him on this quest to understand human behavior to its real core. He's worked with thousands of people for 30 years, able to discover a revolutionary way to avoid self-sabotage and win big. So welcome to the show today, Dr. Phil Agrios.
Hey, Doug, great to see you, man. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here. It's a great opportunity. Thanks.
Oh my gosh. Folks, you know about this guy. He is the one person that I've hired business coaches before. I've talked to people, and I think they need to know the story, Phil. I mean, it's a good one. We'll get to how the self-sabotage thing is prevalent worldwide, and we're going to give people a solution how to fix that. But man, I mean, you're a business person like I am. People watching might have been on LinkedIn prospecting, and that's how Dr. Phil and I met. I was prospecting, and the man's smart, right? He responds back. I'm like, we'll have a chat. Within like what? I don't know, 3 minutes. I'm buying his stuff. Okay. It was, I mean, I got to just lead with this because it's so phenomenal. What was the package that I bought? It was like a 3-month package, right?
Yeah. That's when I was doing one-on-ones. Yeah.
Yeah. When he was doing one. Now he's Mr. Elevate. No, one-on-one. And it's like a 3-month package to get over your crap. And can I just say what the offer was and the goal? I mean, it was
sure.
It's like you said, whatever goal you set, I'll help you achieve it or your money back. And I'm like, wait, you're a coach. You can't tell. What if the guy doesn't follow through? Goes, that's my guarantee. I'm like, done. And I'm thinking I'm going to milk this guy for all his wisdom for 3 months. What'd I say? By the second phone call, I'm like, done. What do I do the rest of the time? You already doubled my business was supposed to, I wanted to double it. And we did it and took a little more than 2 weeks, but I had the antidote within a few weeks and it doubled within, I think, 30 or 60 days. So yeah,
that was fun. That was great. Especially the look on your face. That was cool.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it was, we could talk about it more in detail, but I want to hear about your story, and what people are going to learn today is they all have self-sabotaging traits that you may or may not know. The coolest thing about this talk today is that you've discovered a way that a person can unlock their own antidote to fix that. That's the thing that was so mind-breaking for me. Mind-breaking. I just made that word up. So
that's how words and phrases are made, man.
That's right. Tell us about your background, how you got involved with this. You had some personal challenge. You wanted to go through that and then came out, if you want to share that.
Yeah, I used to be a chiropractor and a functional medicine practitioner. Right. My specialty was thyroid and autoimmune, the sick of the sickest. And during the process of trying to figure out for 30 years, why my practice wasn't doing well at certain times, why my kids were the way they were, or my patients weren't doing what I'm asking them to do. And I found myself on this journey, didn't ask for it. And during the process, I was able to discover a hidden sabotaging trait that we're born with. And we call it the inborn sabotaging trait. Not that it undermines you, but it actually protects you from the very success that you seek. Because if you actually achieve that success, subconsciously, it would be more painful. So you never get to that point. And when I first found this, I was like, man, this is way too simple. There's no way this is it. So I went out to try to disprove it. And over 30 years and thousands of people, I couldn't. And I actually found a way to switch it off instantly. And it works 100% of the time. Now, I'm from Jersey. You tell me this works 100% of the time. I'm going to say bullshit, right? So I knew that. And my reputation being really important to me, I went out to try to disprove that. And whether you're a CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company or a child, this works 100% of the time. And that's why we call it the antidote. Because, if you're out in the desert and you get bitten by a bit of a snake, you are about to die. Do you want the antidote or something that might work? So, so of course you
or
want
some
the answer.
hope and prayer, right? Yeah.
Yeah, like, hey, come in. And that's what business owners do, right? So
Yeah.
when you're in a business or personal downhill, that's
Mhm.
your saboteur just protecting you. And now when you understand why that is occurring, that's the saboteur. And by using
Yeah.
the antidotes, which is the exact opposite to the antidote, to the saboteur, you
Yeah.
immediately go into growth phase. Because there's only two things we do: we protect, we grow, we expand, we
Mhm.
contract, we give and take. We're vibrational
You
beings.
said the protection thing is interesting because you said you're protecting yourself, but it's also your sabotaging trait.
Right, because saboteur really isn't undermining. It's, if you go back to the original, well, you're an editor, right, book publisher. If you go back to the original word of sabotage, which a lot of words get bastardized, is that it was back in the 1890s
Mhm.
where they had French workers become inefficient and slow down to get the attention of the factory workers. So sabotage was there to create an inefficiency, to create some type of slowdown. And what I was able to realize is that that's what that saboteur within us does. It
Yeah.
actually slows us down to get our attention that there is an imbalance. And then we're looking through this even more and more, realize it's what the body does. It's a protection. That's all it
Yeah.
is. Like the thyroid, if your thyroid hormones keep on going, it goes past that point, the body drops it down, stops making it to protect you from a potential imbalance and
Right.
much
Right.
more
Okay.
disease.
Give us a business example of that of a story like somebody's protection mechanism also was sabotaging them. Can you give us some context?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So let's deal with people that like to sell. The business owners need to
Mhm.
close. So
Yeah.
we had a business owner who same thing that she tried to sell me on her
Yeah.
stuff, right? And it was so confusing. I was like, you're all over the place. I really
Mhm.
don't understand what you're trying to sell me. And so she was like, well, I do this all the time. And I said, I call it vomiting communication. You've heard
Yeah.
salespeople that actually talk themselves out of a sale.
Oh my God.
So she signs up with the course, and within 2 weeks, she sells $84,000 in a month.
Nice.
Because what happened was, when you hear people like this, I talk to salespeople all the time, sales managers, and I say, what would you do for them? And they would go, well, I would tell them to go do what? A communication training. I said, no, that's the
Yeah.
last thing I would do for her, because she's great at communication. That's her superpower. The
Mm.
problem is that her saboteur was causing her to feel invalidated. So she felt that she had to overly share, overly
Yeah.
give. And as soon as she realized that, then by working and becoming that she only needed to give people two or three
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
and the rest was gravy for them, it was an immediate shift, because
Yeah.
then her communication became very effective. So that's
Wow.
one.
Okay.
So we see that consistently. So depending on the
Right.
saboteur where you are, your superpower a lot of times will sabotage you and keep you in
Yeah.
this stuck place, because that's your person. That's the part of you. Like, I go to that because when I'm stressed, it feels comfortable, but it doesn't mean it gets you out of anything.
Wow.
I get you out of that situation, or it usually
How
puts you
many?
in more of
Yeah.
a hole.
Are there like infinite number? Are there the top 10? What are the inborn traits that are sabotaging us? Is there like a list of them?
So
Or?
what happens is, what I was able to find, that there are actually three traits that make up who we are. And we call
Okay.
it the director trait, the communicator trait, and the supplier trait. Those three things make up who we are, because everything that we do, we direct, we supply, and we communicate.
Okay.
Once I realized that those were the three things that made us up, when I placed them in a sequence, I called it the personality stress sequence. It's what
Yeah.
you go through when you get stressed out. And then I realized that there is a dominant trait, a mediator trait, and then the saboteur. The dominant trait, like I told you,
Oh,
is your superpower. It's why you're here. That's what you
right.
do. The mediator trait is just the bridge between the two traits, and the saboteur is the thing that protects you. So because there's only three sequences, there are now only, excuse me, there are three traits.
Hmm.
If you do the math, there's only 6 human sequences of behavior. So basically, there are only 6 people in the world. So I show people, especially who are speakers or whatever, is that whether or not you're talking in front of 50 people or 1,000 people, there are only 6 people, and we show them exactly how to talk to them on
Hmm.
a subconscious level, so they can motivate it to be inspired what they're saying.
Hmm.
So So there's really now only 3 saboteurs in the world. Out of 7.8 billion people, there's only 3. So there's the director, the supplier, and the communicator saboteur. And once the person knows who they are and understands that, now they'll see why they have a hard time moving forward, whether or not it's validating themselves, expressing their thoughts and feelings, or finishing tasks and moving forward and focusing.
Why'd you end on that one? You look at me and smile. Hold on a second, folks. Wait a second. We fixed that one. I've got a team now that does all my finishing for me.
There you go. You finally did. There you go. Exactly.
You got me there. All right.
So we can explain each and every one of them if you want me to, or it depends on what you want to. What your next question?
Yeah,
is.
no, I'd love to hear. I have another story of somebody who was not vomiting too much with the mouth, but a different trait that got sick.
So let's look at see what happens is your personal and your business are one. Yeah. When you use your saboteur, both are affected. When you use your antidote, both are affected at the same time. And it just depending on the degree of that challenge, how quickly they can be solved. Right. So I had a manager come up to me. I have a workshop that I do, and he came up to me and says, my son's always upstairs playing video games. Can't get him downstairs to interact with the family. Right. So right then and there, I asked him a few questions, ascertained his son's sequence, knew his, told him exactly what to do. Within a week, he calls me and says, my son's downstairs playing is now interacting with the family. And then within 2 months, their relationship skyrocketed because now he understood he was the one pushing his son back in the room. His son was what's called a communicator saboteur. So what was happening is because how he grew up, he was making fun of his son because that's how he grew up. Yeah. But then realized that was actually deflating his son because of his saboteur. And as soon as he shifted, that started to create the relationship. And then he saw he was doing the same thing in his business. And as he started shifting that, not only did his relationship with his customers and his employees improve, his bottom line increased tremendously as well.
Amazing. Wow.
So it comes from you. It doesn't come from anybody but you. The outside world is you. Okay. It's the person you can't stand that's in your world is a part of you can't stand. They're just showing up to show you a part of you you're not dealing with. Once you deal with that and deal with the saboteur that's actually bringing that in, 2 things happen. They leave or they stay and change because they want to still stay in your world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You see that every day.
Yeah. It's full transparency here. When Phil and I worked together, I had 1 employee, 1 VA. We've got 7 now. And
that's awesome.
My self-sabotaging trait is not dead. It's still there. But my team now not only completes projects, but reminds me I'm not allowed to bring any new ones in. Finish.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Yeah. You will never, ever, ever get rid of your saboteur because it allows you to evolve.
Yeah.
See, what I tell people, if we never had one, we will be having a conversation how bored you are because everything came go easily to you. We're not here for the easy. We're here for the adversity so that we move forward and evolve. So when you start to release your personal professional power and you start to feel uncomfortable, your saboteur kicks in to protect you. But when you get to that point of being uncomfortable and then start to contract and now know what's going on and then use your antidote, then you go past that comfort zone and that becomes your new reality. So instead of doing this, you're doing this and constantly over. So there's nothing to break through. It's always an expansion. That's all it is. So you'll never get rid of your saboteur. We just show you how to use it to your advantage.
Right. And my saboteur is actually a good thing when it's mediated by the antidote. I mean, I got to be creative. I got to come up with things, but I don't want to do it every week because my staff would say, Doug, we can only finish one thing. So
anyway, I think when we first talked, I don't think you had anybody really. I think you were doing it all yourself. If I remember, you had one person, and I think I asked you, who's your second in command? And I don't think you really had a command. And I told the people that who are director saboteurs need a second in command, or any business person needs a second in command, because if they don't have that, then they'll never scale. So specifically to your saboteur, the director saboteur, which I'll tell you in a minute, is that you hate the details. So that's why it was stopping you, because you were stopping yourself because you were doing things you hated to do. As soon as you started bringing in more people and delegated, we were telling you to do, that's when the business started to grow. It was, the potentiality was there. You were just holding it down because it was more painful to be successful. So the director saboteurs is a person that who's overly scattered, unfocused. They get 99% done with something, stop, and then do something more effectively because they're bored with it. They don't trust themselves, or they don't have enough faith in themselves. Excuse me, they don't have enough knowledge, they'll freeze. Chaos allows them to move forward because it allows them to stimulate their brain. So chaos is usually there to get them going, but it can cause a lot of problems with that. They don't like to be told what to do. They don't like to be accountable. They don't like to be responsible. Now, there are times then that they go to the extreme because they waited to the last minute. They got to get this done, and now they're hyper-focused because they have a time distortion. You know, what takes them, what they think 5 minutes will take them 5 hours, and vice versa. So now they wait. They finally get it done. They go, and then they realize, I didn't allocate my time well, and now I have all this other crap I got to do. And then they go back, and now they're scattered. So now for the rest of your life, those of you who now relate to that, the director saboteur, for the rest of your life, you always have a challenge between hyper-focus and scatteredness. Okay. Now, as I explained the other two, some of the people will say, well, I have all three. Yes, it sounds all three, but one you use mostly, and the other one is more your saboteur, more your superpower. And I have a 5-week live group coaching course called Transcendence 101 from Self-Sabotage to Self-Made Success, where we actually show them the distinction between the two. The supplier saboteur is a person who overly gives, they overly share, they overly supply. They have a hard time saying no because they feel that they have to be there to serve others and that it's selfish to actually take from somebody. These are the business owners who overly give too much. They give, you probably have these clients, they give away their book, or they're giving away too many things because they feel that they don't do that. They can't show the value of themselves because they devalue themselves. Right? So, and then they'll give too much, and then they'll realize that there's no reciprocity between the other people. And now they start feeling resentful, and then they go to the other extreme and go, I've had it. You walked all over me. You're like you've treated me like a doormat, and now hell with you. But then they, depending on who it is and the situation, they'll feel guilty, and then they'll go back to the other side and start overly giving. So supplier saboteurs will always have for the rest of their life to try to find the balance between giving and taking.
Right.
The communicator saboteur is a person who doesn't express themselves. They don't communicate that well. They have a hard time disconnecting. They overly process things. They'll overly think. They'll overly feel because they're not expressing how they're thinking or feeling. So people have to guess what they're thinking, which is majority of times wrong. And they get upset with them. They should know what I'm thinking. They don't. And what happens is, so then they'll go back into their shell and they'll not express themselves. But then there'll be times where then somebody will overly disrespect them. And then there's like the volcano that just explodes. Or they'll tell them they're an idiot under their breath because they don't want to confront, because they don't want to feel stupid or embarrassed. And then they'll go back and then they'll then shut the person off. It takes a long time to get a communicator saboteur back in your graces once they cut you down. So those are the three. And depending on which one you really resonate with the most is where that's where the saboteur is. And if you are a director saboteur, then your supplier and communicator are in the other two places and vice versa. So again, there's only 6 sequences. And once you really understand those sequences, you'll know everybody and why they are who they are in your life. Because a lot of times what people do is they focus on other people, as in they try to support them in the way they think they need to be supported, which is not how they need to be supported. It's really how they need to be supported.
Wow. So not only in business, but this sounds like it'd be great for couples too, right?
My recent, one of the last people that I've worked with, he said, I'm going to call my lawyer tomorrow. I'm getting a divorce. And I've had a few of those. They're still married because it wasn't that they hated each other. They just were protecting themselves from each other. And once they understood why the other person did what they did, and we worked with them, and then they had a child too, who they now understood how that interplayed. it
Sure.
started now understanding why they did what they did, and now they're together like many other couples are as well. Same thing
Yeah.
with business owners. I've had business owners where I've helped them to disconnect. I had
Yeah.
two that were disconnecting, but they were able to be friends and what do you call it? At the end, friends, and still refer to each other instead of hating each other. And
Right.
then I've had where I looked at business partners. I just talked with a company that the five of them, and we sat down and showed how they were interplaying with each other
Mhm.
and where the fractures of the business was. And
Oh,
now they're ready to work because now they understand how each and every one of them, what they're doing, their saboteurs, actually subconsciously sabotaging the business. Because your own business has its own inborn sabotaging trait. So
sure.
at one of my workshops, I show that how they, as well as the staff, subconsciously use their saboteur to enhance the business's saboteur. And once we use their antidote to the business antidote, it's like a valve of success that kicks in.
Wow. Yeah.
And when a person doesn't close, it's their
Yeah.
saboteur that stops them because it's more painful to close that person than not. And then imagine knowing a potential client, understanding their saboteur. Now you know the resistance, and now you can drive them to your product and service if that product and service is right for them.
Wow.
Karma's a bitch.
Can
So-
you like I can, do my own assessment. You're going to give us an assessment. By the way, folks, down below here in the notes, there's an assessment you can take with Dr. Phil. How do I apply that to somebody I'm talking to? Can I quickly size them up, or do I have to ask them some questions? I can't give them a quiz,
But it all depends. Well, that's our Transcendence 201 course. It's our business course, it's a 3-month course, where we actually teach people how to ascertain, people understand who they are by asking a couple of questions, or just by seeing that. We also, if you can watch TV, we were, I think 2 classes before, we were talking about This Is Us. And they were nailing all the characters of their sequences. Now I understand why it is pretty cool. And but yeah, when you start really understanding, you will now understand not only the people around you, your family members, your loved ones, and your coworkers, and your staff. You'll start understanding strangers or people you just talked to. And that's why I have a very high closing rate, because I already know the person's stuckness. I just got to show them that this course is right for them. And if it's not, then I tell them, please don't take the course. This is not right for you, or you're not ready. Which is key. Cool. And those are the salespeople. You have to be okay saying no to them, because you don't want a client that's gonna stress you out, that's going to cause that, because not because they're jerks, it's because they're just not in the right frequency as you, and that's just going to cause it, and then your reputation is going to go down the hill. So I've been able to
turn down my first big client a few months ago. It was agonizingly enjoyable. It was a 6-figure deal. I'm like, I'm sorry, it's not in our wheelhouse. I can't help. Oh, there's so much money there, but I couldn't do it.
Well, we just had that a couple months ago with somebody else. Yeah. He was on the call and he was like, man, I got my biggest client coming. I'm so excited. We're all cheering for him. That's awesome. Next week he comes on, he goes, I said no to them. I was like, really? He goes, because of the antidote, I realized that if I went with it, oh my God, I would have so much pain and so much stress that when I said no, and then it opened up to other people. I've had clients where they fired, I've been telling you got to fire these 2 people or your manager. And when they did it, then they would bring more people in to offset, because if it stresses you out, the last thing you want to do is bring more work to you. So subconsciously, again, you stop it because it's more painful to be successful.
Right. Amazing stuff. So the quiz is sabquiz.com. That's sabquiz.com, right?
Right. SAB, short for sabotage. Okay. And when you get to the quiz, please read the instructions. Do not take the quiz as of today.
Okay.
Right? It is for the past of how maybe as a child or a teenager. Right. The reason why is because a lot of you, especially therapists and coaches, have gone through a lot of training. So they'll answer it as they're using the antidote, and then they'll get the wrong answer.
Right.
Because they're answering. So as soon as they go back, they go, especially, oh, well, I used to do that. I'm like, no, you still do that. Maybe 90% of the time you're not doing it, but the other 5-10, you have to do it because that's how you evolve, unless you're just playing life safe and you're not taking any calculated risk to expand and evolve,
Right.
whether in your personal or your business. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally makes sense. Have you seen
Yeah.
everybody that you've long term where there are three things to actually shift on a permanent basis where
It's always the same. I was on the
okay.
phone with somebody, and the difference between me and the other personality stress test, which one of them says, every 6 months I got to retake it. And I said, this is
Yeah.
the last quiz you'll have to take because this
Yeah.
is what you're born with. Because what's happening is this is with you. And that's what we were able to see. And how I know that, because I've been working with this for 30 years. So we still know people from 20 years ago that
Right.
have been clients or patients, and they'll come to me and go, this is what I'm going through. And I'm like, you're a saboteur. And they're like, oh yeah, it's the
Oh
same
yeah.
thing. I said, it's just the same thing, different, same actor, different clothes. It's the same thing. And they're like,
I've just seen that
wow.
expression so many times. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. I think I might have done like 4 times we were talking like, oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah, yeah, you experienced it as well,
Yeah.
and that's why it took me 30 years ago, and this can't be this freaking simple. I tried it to prove I've still been waiting, and thousands and thousands of people can't. So because it's a law that I discovered, and that's
Yeah.
why it works.
I love it. I so appreciate you. That's all the time we have for today. We'll come back again sometime, but go check it out, guys. www.sab, it stands for sabotage, sabquiz.com. Dr. Phil, thank you. Any parting words of wisdom besides taking the quiz?
Yeah, 3 things.
Yeah.
Just say it's okay. Whatever you're going through, it's okay. Number 2, realize that the saboteur is just protecting you. It's not there to make your life worse. It's there to get you moving and to evolve you. And 3, you have the antidote. Take the quiz, find it out, move forward. And if you want to know a little more, then we can talk about further about our possible one of our group coaching courses that will be perfectly fit for you. Thank you.
Love it, man. Good job. Thank you very much. That concludes the show for today. Thank you, Dr. Phil. You can tell that I use this guy in my business. It doubled in about, I'm going to say 60 days, maybe a little less, whatever. It's great stuff. It works. Check it out. Show notes are there for you to sign up for, get some more information, and have a great day. This is Doug Crow from Author Your Brand.